Hello there. So, if you're looking into yoga to bring some more flexibility and mobility routine into your fitness regimen, great choice. I have personally been teaching yoga at a local CrossFit box for a few years, and honestly, the results can be amazing and impressive to see. However, if you're looking into yoga, you might feel slightly overwhelmed with all the choice that you find online or in your studio, and you actually are not quite sure which yoga to choose for yourself. I gotcha. This chat is going to be precisely about the pros and cons of going for yoga online or in person, and then a slight overview of what are the most common types of yoga classes or styles of yoga classes that you might actually find, whether online or in your local studio or in your local gym. Let's get into it. Let's talk about first about online and in-person classes. Online classes have plenty of advantages. First advantage, which is also a little bit of a disadvantage at the same time, is the choice. Online, you can choose from so many styles, so many classes, from many teachers, even teachers that, work and live across the globe. So you are not limited at all in terms of with whom to work and really from whom and what kind of class to choose. However, at the same time, this exactly can be the downside because at some point it might be just too much choice and the choice might be overwhelming and confusing. But online also has plenty of conveniences in the sense that you don't have to commute anywhere. You don't have to go anywhere. You can just hit play on your screen at home, at your gym, and you kind of take the yoga in your pocket with you wherever you go. So that has great advantage. You are not wasting time commuting somewhere for your class. Another advantage going online is pricing, budget. There's so much yoga that you can find for free on YouTube. Great, especially if you already have a gym membership, and they are not always cheap, aren't they, right? So adding another subscription or another membership to a, in-person yoga studio, it can get pricey if it adds up. So actually going for cheaper options or even free options online, that can be also a great help. Last thing that I would list as an advantage of going online is if, for example, you're a little bit self-conscious or a little bit shy or more on the introverted side and you just like don't necessarily want to be like, in a crowded room of people, or you're not really wanting to people see as you are struggling in the poses because this is the first time you're doing yoga ever in your life, going online in the comfort of your own home can be actually great, and it can feel a bit safer, a bit more reassuring that you are not judged by anybody, and you can just like explore on your own without that self-conscious feeling of feeling awkward, because sometimes, especially if you're doing movements for the first time in your life, it can be just like, what am I doing? However, there can be a downside to going for online classes, and that is that most of the time, especially if the classes are pre-recorded, if it's a YouTube video, you're not going to get feedback. So at some point, if you keep on practicing online, I think it's a good idea to actually go for a live class, whether in person or online, but for a class where the teacher can actually see you and give you feedback. Because sometimes we have the tendency to compensate and avoid, and it's a lot of time unconscious. We try to mimic the movement, but we are not quite sure we are actually hitting the right muscles and the right angles. And that's where the teacher can actually help. The feedback from the teacher. How to position yourself, how to align yourself, what to focus on, etc. And feedback is exactly what actually makes in-person classes so valuable, because you will get live feedback from your teacher directly on the spot. And there can be not only verbal cue, but they can also demonstrate for you. They can potentially, if you are comfortable with that, assist you physically, hands-on, to adjust the position of your arm, to adjust the position of your foot, for example. So this can be so useful. At the same time, there is another element that can, I think, speak to more people who are possibly extroverted or who like to be around people, and that is that community, practicing with others in one room. It does have a different feel than if you're practicing alone in your living room in front of a screen. So that, depending again on what your personality might be or what your personal preferences might be, this can actually be an advantage, kind of a sense of community. However, the downside of classes in person is the price. It's obviously like, of course, there is the teacher's costs, the studio costs, the utilities costs. You have to pay for that. And while, of course, there's value in the yoga classes, and there is tremendous value in going for in-person class, and getting all the skills of the teacher there focused for 60, 75, 90 minutes, depending on what kind of class you go for. That's amazing, and there is a huge value in that. However, I understand that budget-wise, at some point it can be just too much. Again, especially as I said, if you already have a gym membership, and if you have, for example, a CrossFit gym membership, they are not usually cheap. So adding another membership to it, it can just add up to too much. Another downside of going for in-person might be commute. If you need to actually add 30, 40, 1 hour time of commuting to your yoga class, again, in your busy schedule, this might add up beyond anything that is actually feasible and realistic for you. Let's talk now about all the different kind of styles of yoga that you can actually find, whether online or on the schedule of your local yoga studio. Let's talk Hatha. Hatha yoga is kind of the mother of yoga classes. This style is great for working your flexibility and for working your mobility. It's relatively slow-ish, and you will get to stay in those poses for a few moments. So you will have the time to really work on your alignment, on the proper positioning of your feet, your legs, your hips, everything. So in that sense, this is really good because you will be able to work in detail. The teacher most likely, if you're working with a teacher live, will not necessarily allow you to deviate too far from the poses. So in this sense, you're sure you will get to do the work. At the same time, Hatha yoga is great and very suitable for beginners. So if you have never done yoga before in your life and you are thinking about signing up for Hatha yoga, totally don't hesitate, go for it. Vinyasa yoga, that's my favorite. And let's talk about that one. Vinyasa is dynamic, so you will get to move. The principle of vinyasa is that you move one breath, one movement, and that you use sun salutation, or like a part of sun salutation sequence called vinyasa sequence, for transitioning in between different poses. And basically by using this sequence, we kind of create entire flows of movements. The thing is with vinyasa that, yes, you will definitely get to work on your flexibility and your mobility. However, it's a relatively fast-paced class, meaning you are not necessarily going to be staying for long in those poses. So you will not have necessarily much time to work in depth in each exact pose as you would have the time in a hatha class. Also, precisely because it can be relatively fast paced, it might not be the best first choice for a complete beginner. However, I would want to make a caveat here. If you find somewhere on the schedule slow vinyasa flow, slow flow, vinyasa based, vinyasa inspired, by all means go for it. Usually these classes use that dynamic aspect. These classes usually have some sort of a flow element to it, but it's not as fast. It's not necessarily strictly one breath, one movement. You inhale and you exhale into a next position. So this slower pace can actually make it more suitable if you really want to work flexibility, mobility. And the slower pace might also make the class more suitable if you're a complete beginner. Similar to vinyasa is power yoga. Again, power yoga is dynamic. So yes, you will break some sweat. Yes, you will get to work your flexibility, mobility. However, again, at the same time, you will not be necessarily staying for long in those poses. If you're a complete beginner, power might not be the best choice. However, if you have had already some previous yoga experience, I don't know, it can be even just 5 classes, seriously, you will be fine. If you're somebody who, for example, would not cope well with the more slower paced or static nature of hatha yoga, for example, vinyasa based or vinyasa classes or power yoga classes might be actually a good choice for you because of its dynamicism, if that's the word. And it might actually suit your character better. And still, yes, you will get to work your flexibility, mobility. Let me briefly mention Ashtanga yoga here, because that's something that you might find online as well. Ashtanga will damn challenge you on your flexibility and mobility. That's probably like one of the most challenging yoga styles there can be. However, it's really challenging physically. So you might already need a level of flexibility already in order to be able to actually, do an Ashtanga yoga class. Second of all, it can be really challenging mentally. And I want to mention it here because Ashtanga yoga is a very rigorous practice. And there are actually given poses in given series, and you cannot move from one series to another unless you have mastered all the poses in the first primary series. And that can be hard because that makes your yoga classes pretty much the same for an extended period of time. And for me personally, for example, this would mentally be super difficult. So, Ashtanga, yes, it's great. It's damn going to challenge your flexibility and mobility. However, I would say if you have never done yoga before, I would probably not recommend to go for an Ashtanga yoga as a first yoga class in your life ever. Maybe don't do that. But if you have had some kind of yoga experience before and you're curious, by all means, go ahead and try it. Be ready for it mentally that it's going to be a challenge, both physical and mental. Let's also talk about hot yoga or Bikram yoga, because these styles are really popular. For these, you will have to go into your studio. You cannot practice this necessarily online because the whole idea behind hot and Bikram yoga is that you practice in a room that is heated, I think, to 40 degrees Celsius. And so, yeah, online you won't be able to do this one. And I want to mention it because a lot of people I have encountered actually swear by hot yoga or Bikram yoga. that it really helps them with their muscle recovery. It's kind of like as if you practice yoga in a sauna. However, I want to say a caveat. Yes, it's great for your muscle recovery. You stretch and you stretch, but that's precisely a little bit the potential danger. Because your muscles are so warm, you risk to overstretch. And therefore, you risk to create a bit of damage to your soft tissues like tendons, ligaments. You risk more actually to sprain your joints precisely because you don't really feel the resistance. You don't really feel the stretch because the muscles are so warm. You easily actually overextend, overstretch. So as much as I would say, yes, it's great and it will definitely help you with your flexibility, I would say don't do this style if this is your first time yoga ever in your life, because it will be really physically challenging and mentally challenging to stick through a yoga sequence in a sauna, really. It can be a lot. Even for a seasoned practitioner, really, this can be a lot. And you do want to have some previous yoga practice or some really well developed body awareness. You really want to know your body well, where your limits are, etc. Precisely so that you pay attention if you're maybe stretching it too far, precisely because you're just really, really warm. Let's talk about yin yoga, because yin is really, really great to work on your flexibility and your mobility, and really to work on your mobility, because yin yoga is specifically designed to target your tendons, your ligaments, your fascia, the soft tissues. So on that front, yin will be absolutely brilliant complement to your fitness routine if you're really looking to work specifically mobility and flexibility, of course. However, I do want to also put up a warning here. It can be really mentally challenging. Why? In yin yoga, you actually hold the poses for 2, 3, even up to 5 minutes. And that, just the sheer amount of time that you stay in the pose, can actually be really, really difficult. It can be difficult physically. That's why yoga teachers in yin yoga classes do encourage you not to go to your 100% immediately. They just advise you to go 70% into your stretch, and that's where you're staying. But it can be really challenging mentally, precisely because you're staying there long. And at some point, it can feel like, oh my God, how much longer do I have to stay here? So, yin yoga, great for mobility. But if it's your first time yoga ever, don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. Really go for yin only if you have had some yoga practice before, and if you have that personality and that character and that temperament that you know that it will not be torture for you to stay for a few minutes in one position. And last style that I would like to mention here is restorative yoga. Restorative yoga is brilliant for recovery. Again, you're holding the poses for relatively long time, like even 10 minutes. But this time, in these poses, the idea is not to challenge you. The idea is not to challenge your flexibility or mobility. The idea is to find comfort. And I want to mention restorative yoga here because maybe you're not going to be working your flexibility and your mobility. However, you will be doing a big favor to your muscles and your muscle recovery, precisely because you basically give yourself 1 hour of active rest. And that's priceless for your recovery. So I would say, even if you don't get to work your flexibility mobility, restorative yoga can be a great addition to your fitness regimen, precisely for the recovery benefits. To conclude, I would sum up how to choose your yoga class. From all the different styles, see for yourself what your goals are, whether flexibility, mobility, what your temperament is, what kind of personality and character you are, and what would work for you better, whether something more dynamic than, vinyasa, power, or whether something more static, say hatha, yin. And then also look for, just the practicalities. What is your budget? What is your schedule? Can you actually fit into your schedule and into your budget an entire new membership to a local yoga studio? And can you fit in actually the commute to your local yoga studio? Does their schedule actually suit your schedule, the timing of the classes? If not, then you know that you need to be looking for different solutions, most likely online solutions, where you can actually have a bit more flexibility in terms of scheduling. You maybe will be able to cut down completely the commute time, and you will be able to take your yoga in your pocket with you at home, in the gym, and press play whenever it's convenient for you. Last thing, you do want to also find a teacher that suits you. A teacher that suits your character and your personality, that kind of like matches your vibe, with whom you feel good. It's priceless. When you click, when you connect, it just makes immediately the whole experience better and more enjoyable. And you also want to look for a teacher who is capable of adjusting the poses and adjusting the sequences to you, to your body, to your needs, to your fitness goals. So in that sense, I would really encourage you, if you're, for example, working with someone live, whether in person or online, and especially if you're coming into a yoga class for the first time ever in your life, please don't feel shy. Please don't hesitate, and go and speak to your teacher. Tell them what you need, what you're here for, and tell them, yes, this is my first time yoga ever. I would really appreciate if you could take that into account, or if you could give me some extra tip or advice. Really don't hesitate to do that. And again, from the response of the teacher, you will be able to tell whether they are willing to accommodate to you and your needs or not. And that's a big indicator, or an important indicator, for you to then see, do you want to continue working with this person or not? All in all, you will need to make few trials and errors. It's not going to be that like, yes, I like this style, that sounds like what she's saying, that's going to be right for me, and then bam, it has to be perfect. No. You might have to try out a few different styles. You might have to try out a few different teachers. You might have to try a few classes online, and maybe, I don't know, like a free trial somewhere, in your local gym or in your local studio. Don't despair if the first class doesn't fit. You might really need to take, 5 to 10 classes here and there to see, to try out, to taste basically what works for you, what suits you. And honestly, after that, I'm totally sure you will be able to nail down what style you like. By 5th or 10th class, you will already know which teacher you want to work with. And from there on, you're all set to use yoga for your flexibility and mobility in your fitness regimen. Hope this helps, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye.